I haven't seen anything to indicate that just because you have a name like Blackfoot, that you are somehow descended from the original people of the Americas. Cherokee owned African slaves. A lot of people don't know that. We talk about a lot of times that we had a harmonious relationship with Native Americans, but it wasn't always like that.
What happened after they brought in the African slaves in such large numbers, more and more intermarriage took place as there was less and less of a distinctly Indian presence, and you had more and more of the mixtures, or mulattoes, as it shows in the census records. Mulatto, I hate that term because it's just an umbrella to sweep all Indian people under. And then there was after that term came about, then they came up with the term colored. And that was another big umbrella to sweep all the Indian people under. Anything so they wouldn't have to put the word Indian in the record books. So what they couldn't accomplish with the torch and the gun, they hoped to accomplish with the stroke of a pen. And it's for that reason I reject totally the label of Black Indian, because I've seen people use that term. I've seen some of our own people use it themselves, but usually it's an externally applied term. And I reject that totally. As long as there are blonde-headed Mohawks and blue-eyed Cherokees who are not identified as Euro-Indians, why should any Indian that has any black ancestry be identified as a black Indian? What's good for the goose has to be good for the gander, but it's just a reflection of the racism that's in this society in general. When this whole idea of recognition, federal recognition, started to manifest itself, the government was basically holding up a hoop that we all had to jump through as tribes. And so if you couldn't make it through, or if you're almost making it through, and they decided to raise it higher, you had to jump higher and do even more tricks. So it ends up with a process where mountains and mountains of detailed documentation has to be put together to submit to the very same people who have spent all of their time here on your land trying to stop your existence.
What's up, world? It's your boy AJ, the Black World Traveler. So today, I'm doing a reaction video of Renuku Rashid. He was saying that it was ignorant to call yourself, if you don't call yourself African American and you think that you are an indigenous black person to America or Native American, that is foolish. So he has a right to his opinion. But what's crazy about it is this: if you know if your ancestors, which most black people did, most black American people were taught who they were by their ancestors. Let's just be real. Big Mama in our family, that's my great grandmother. She taught my mother our lineage. We know our family. We know who we are, where we're from. And so what's funny is that me calling myself a Native American because I look like this is ignorant. But my mother met her great-grandmother, which is my great-great-grandmother. This is how real this gets. My great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee Indian, right? She had a baby with a Blackfoot Indian. These are dark-skinned people. I met my great-grandmother. My great-great-grandmother, who was Cherokee Indian, gave birth to my great-grandmother, who I met. My mom met her great-grandmother, which is my great-great-grandmother. She said she was a red woman. She had long black hair. She was a red woman. That's who my great-grandmother's mother was. And so, how am I not indigenous if my great-great-grandmother is an indigenous woman? Like majority black people, the reason why I use the term black, because it's just an identity thing. Calling myself an African American can confuse you, because Africans who came over to the Americas are African American because they came from Africa and then they end up becoming American. Where I don't know how long my family, if I have any of my African relatives, I have no idea how long they've been in America. And there are black people who came here on their own who's already here in the Americas. And so, from what I know, my family was already here. But knowing if this woman gave birth to my great-grandmother, and she's full-blood Cherokee, how do I don't have Cherokee blood? Majority black people in America always bragged about their lineage because they were told it was prideful to be who you were, no matter if you were enslaved or not. We were enslaved by Europeans already, because first thing the Afrocentric scholars say, well, Native Americans had slaves. Okay, yeah, blacks had slaves too.
Some Native Americans actually were slave owners. The group of Native Americans that I have the most respect for are the Seminoles.
Why every time when a pro-African scholar teaches about your history, about you being African, they always try to bring up that Native American people own slaves. And why are we always, every time it comes to black history, we're only referred to as slaves, which is bull. So it's always, why is our history always reflected on slavery? And the reason why, because in the South. Our family's from the South. So, and my great-great-grandmother had children by the slave owner too. So everybody's going by the story that the scholars read. I know my lineage. I know who I am. I know my history. You're not going to tell me who I am or who I'm not. Just because you read books and you've been a scholar and you've been studying this for 40, 50 years doesn't make you right. If my ancestors, most black people in America, ancestors told them who they were, where they were from, if you were Cherokee, Blackfoot, Shinnecock, Seminole, Creek. If you were taught that by your ancestors, why in the hell are you going to let somebody tell you that you're not that? Because you have dark skin. And it's funny because who are you to tell somebody? Yeah, because you're an African scholar, because I have the same complexion of an African. So what's more deceiving is that they say, oh, well, you guys don't believe it. The DNA is, just take a DNA test. Bro, if you take a DNA test and you go against what your ancestors told you, then you deserve what you get. Because the DNA is not accurate to try to find your lineage in a world. Science, if you believe that science has gotten that advanced, then you should believe it. I'm not taking that stuff. I'm not taking the DNA because I was told who I am already. My ancestors taught us who we were.
In this article, it says here, genetics, the science and business of genetic ancestry testing. All right, Deborah A. Bolnick and all these scientists, professors, all right, that contributed to this. Consumers often purchase these tests to learn about their race or ethnicity, but there is no clear-cut connection between an individual's DNA and his or her racial or ethnic affiliation. Again, there is no clear-cut connection between an individual's DNA and his or her racial or ethnic affiliation. Many genetic ancestry tests also claim to tell consumers where their ancestral lineage originated. All right, again, they claim, all right, and the social group to which their ancestors belong. However, present-day patterns of residence are rarely identical to what existed in the past, and social groups have changed over time in name and composition. Databases of present-day samples may therefore provide false leads. Thus, these tests should not be seen as determining the race or ethnicity of a test taker. They cannot pinpoint the place of origin or social affiliation of even one ancestor with exact certainty.
Businesses often don't go around telling you how weak their product is.
We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
It's less than 0.1%.
that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
My great-grandmother passed it on. My mother passed it down to me and our family. And we even documented. It's documented. We're on record. Now we don't have record of Africa. See, the thing about me, the reason why I use the term Black American, because when you say Black American, they know you're an American. When you say the word African, that puts you in a different category. See, we call ourselves African Americans. Well, we don't have no African traditions. There's 54 countries in Africa. Do you know that there's so many different cultures in Africa? If you said, well, my DNA said I was Nigerian, do you know how many tribes there are in Nigeria? And bro, if you have no family to go see, if you have no relatives in Africa, bro, that doesn't make you African. It just makes you a descendant. Your complexion and your skin is the only thing that identifies you an African. So there were a lot of black people that I know to this day that I got family that have long, silky black hair because some of them look more Native American. Some of us look more African. Like, I got more thicker hair. My dad's a dark-skinned man. He doesn't know his lineage, but my mom knows hers. But to say that we're foolish to call ourselves Native American is crazy. If you feel you don't have Native American blood, and you should feel the way you feel, but majority Black Americans had Native American bloodline because we were all from the South. A lot of the reason why the ideologies changed about who we were, because a lot of blacks, when they left the South, right? You got to realize when black folks in the South, a lot of them weren't educated, but they were very heavy in the culture. They would teach the kids at home who they were. That's the difference between going to college and being homeschooled with no education. When you lived in the South back then and you was on the plantations, the ancestors would tell you, all the elders would tell you who you were. They would tell you your lineage. So a lot of black people in America that didn't come on slave ships, most of them had Native American blood somewhere because they were here on the land with the Native Americans. So how are you mixed with them and don't have their blood? And there's a lot of them that they hate it. I mean, there's black Seminoles, there's black people that were raised in the tribes that are fighting for their rights to be considered a tribe member. But some of the full-blood Native Americans don't want the blacks in their tribes anymore, but they're part of you. They have your blood. You've been mating with them. They all they know is to live off the tribal land. All they know is to live how they've been living.
Nobody ever really shined light on the fact that I was also African American and Irish, because everybody in Nia Bay was basically Makah, and the school was 99.9% Makah. We were Makah, so the only difference was we had curly hair and everybody else had long hair. And then when I went away to college, I found myself more so gravitating towards African American people because that's how everybody off the reservation viewed me. Nobody had no clue I was born and raised on the reservation, and I had a lot of girlfriends who were African American, and some of them said I was more white acting, or I really was more Indian than I was black. And that was kind of the first time I had anybody really question or challenge me, when really I didn't think it mattered because I knew who I was.
See, what's different between the North American black people and people in the South and Central America, even if they are considered, they call themselves Afro, Latinos, which basically is Afro native, because Latinos brought their language there and they invaded the place. That's why they call themselves Latinos, because they speak Spanish, but they're not original Latinos. They're original indigenous people. So the Taínos and the Caribe and when you go to like Honduras, you had the Garifuna black people are in Honduras and they're Garifunas. Some were Africans, some weren't. Some were already there before the Africans came. Just like here, there were some Africans that came over in the African slave trade. There was already blacks in the Americas though, because North America, we had the least amount of slaves that came from Africa. There was only like 400,000 some slaves that came on the whole slave trade. Mostly came here. They didn't bring a lot of people from Africa over here, bro. And because there was already black people already here. That's why we say we're indigenous, bro. If I blended with if the Native Americans were the first people here, And I had, my great grandmother was, you know, even if I say I was Navajo, I'm living in Arizona. Say if right now, if I wouldn't have married a Navajo woman, right, and we had a kid together, you think my kid ain't Navajo because he's have dark skin and nappy hair? That makes him not Navajo? I don't understand it, bro. Like, we have our relatives that we know that the Native American. How are you telling me I'm not that? Because you read books and you're not, and you're a scholar. So I got to be an idiot because I'm claiming something that the wounds that I came of with Native people. So I got to denounce that and say, well, I'm just African. Because if I went and took a DNA test right now and I was 85% African, I know it'd be false. Because we're mixed with everything. Most black Americans are mixed with everything. African people are not mixed with everything. You got to realize the difference between an African and an American and a Caribbean person. People from the Caribbean, people from the North America and South America are mixed with everything. You either mix with indigenous, you use African, you mix with European, some even Asian, because that's how it was made here. The Americas people moved here and they made it together. So you go to Panama, for instance, Panamanian people are all mixed. See, African people aren't mixed. This is the reason why we never be African. African people don't mix like that. Man, African people mix here in the United States, but African people in Africa were all black. Think about it. When you live in Africa, the majority of people in Africa are black. So if you're from Nigeria and say you date another tribe, bro, that still makes you African because you. So if you're Igbo and your wife is Fulani, or say if you're Igbo and your wife is Yoruba, they're gonna speak Yoruba and Igbo to the kids. You're gonna learn both traditions. You're gonna know what to wear, what the food is. Bro, you go to Congos, you go to East Africa, like Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya. If you go to Tanzania, it's gonna be a whole different dialect, bro. It's gonna be a whole different culture. Their food is different. The food's totally different. You go to Central Africa, go in the Middle Africa, the food's gonna be different. If they live in the desert, the food's gonna be totally different. They're not gonna eat fish and all that because they're desert people. And you talking about African? Why would I claim something that I don't know nothing about? Just because I have dark skin or I took a DNA test, it's not really accurate. Most people take these DNA tests. I know brothers and sisters take the same test and get different readings because they use sequences. They use sequences from Africa and they try to match them and see which is more identical, and they give you the outcome.
Smith's breakdown from Ancestry showed 97% European and 2% Asian.
I'm a black girl. I am not a Jewish white lady. I'm black. My parents were black.
She contacted Ancestry with questions, but says a rep told her the results are accurate.
She told me there was no way they could have made an error.
These DNA tests for ethnicity are entertainment value only.
William Gilliland is a biology professor at DePaul. He says DNA kits can be great for connecting family members and finding relatives, but the science for ethnicity testing isn't as concrete.
There's nothing that confident for ethnicity. There's no diagnostic nucleotide. You can say this person is from Europe, this person's from Africa.
It's exciting to make discoveries like this, but if they're not true, it's heartbreaking.
Then what gets me is this. They'll tell you, well, you're African. These Afrocentric scholars will tell you, well, you're African. You know, and you're just ashamed of being black. You're just ashamed of being African. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. Okay, so Native American people are considered to be Asian, right? What's crazy is this: when a Native American takes a blood test, they come out 91%. A lot of don't even show Asian in their blood. They'll show European before they show Asian in their blood. So if they came from Asia, how in the hell they don't show Asian in their DNA? But I take a test and I'm 85% African. And I got the same bloodline they have. Because my great-grandmother or my great-granddad, they all were Native American, mixed. But I have it don't show no Native American in my bloodline, and I came from a Native American woman or a Native American man that was mixed. But the Native man would take a blood test and he's 90% Native American. He didn't even show no Asian in his bloodline. Most Native Americans that take DNA tests show majority Native American. They don't even show they may even show the African, but mostly it's European in their bloodline. And the percentage of the Asian is very small. So it lets you know something. But it tells somebody that they're ignorant because they said they have native blood because they look like me. It's crazy. My great-grandmother was a white woman. She was French. My great-great-granddad was black on my mother's father's side. So we're mixed with everything. We are mixed with everything. Black Americans are mixed with everything. If you're from America, North, South, Central America, the Caribbean, you are mixed. We're not no full bloods. Like Africans have their lineage. A lot of them are full blood because they're not mixed. They didn't mix with Europeans. The ones who mix with Europeans are mostly South Africans. Most people in West Africa, if they did mix, they mixed when they moved to Europe. That's the reason why when you see these people walking around, they go to different countries saying, what y'all think about African Americans? They say, oh, they don't know who they are. They're all mixed up. Yeah, we are mixed up. We do know who we are, but what's happening is that a lot of these black people, they have moved to these they move out of the South, or they go to school, and then they start learning other history, and then they start denouncing their lineage in America. They start denouncing it. Oh, I found out that I'm a 5%er, or I'm an Israelite now. So when you become a different religion, now you say, well, so basically you're saying everything that the ancestors told us, all the great-great-grandmothers and grandmothers who sat down and taught you about your history, who your great-great-grandmother was, and that's how you had souls. That's why we have our traditions. You have family reunions for that reason. A lot of black people have family reunions. They have photo albums. They'll show you people in the 1700s. Who that pretty woman with that long silky hair? Oh, that's your great-great-grandmother. She's the one that she's Shinnecock, or she's Creole, or she's Creole and she has a little Indian in it too, because everybody was mixed. There's nothing wrong with it. So I don't know why some Native Americans get upset, because they know that a lot of black people were Native. They know that we have Native blood, and they go on record. I mean, they got Native Americans that's on record saying we don't want the blacks in the tribe, but they came from the tribe. They were raised in the tribe. How are you telling these black people who were raised Cherokee or raised whatever, or Seminole, whoever they were, and they're fighting for their rights back because that's all they know. They were raised on the tribe. They were raised in the community. As one of y'all, they just mixed. They're not 100% Native American. But it still makes them indigenous, because if Native American are indigenous to America, and they have your bloodline that mixed with you, don't that make them Native American, bro? What trips me out is that you could go out and have a child with somebody right now, right? I could have a child with a white woman. My child's going to be biracial. But you tell me 100 years ago, when my same concept, black man has a white woman has a mixed child with her, but you're not part white. Come on, man, that don't make any sense. We can't help who we are. We can't help how we were born. But I'm not going to let no Umar Johnson or Ronuko, anybody tell me that I'm not who I am when I know my lineage. Because it might not be your lineage, but bro, why would I denounce my elders? Why would I denounce my relatives? Why would I denounce my lineage of the people who brought me in the world? If it wasn't for them mating and coming together and having babies, I wouldn't be here. So why would I deny my heritage to people that I know? I ain't got to prove nothing to you. I ain't got to prove nothing to nobody. I know who I am. And if you're going against what your ancestors taught you, then you're wrong. You're definitely wrong. If your ancestors told you who you were back then, and then you got into other religions and other practices, now you're saying that you're only African, well, you're a fool. You're the fool. Because trust me, I know majority of black people, when I came up in the 70s, everybody bragged about their grandparents, their great-grandmother being Cherokee. I know friends right now who bragged about it, and then they take the DNA, and now I'm African, I'm this and that. When your ancestors told you who you were. I would never shit on my ancestors about nothing like that. I would never, ever do that to them. Because they know who we are. They the ones who made us. And like I said, I know friends who was raised up that way, who knows their lineage, but went to college or started reading books and said, well, guess what, man? I found out that I'm going to get my DNA test because I went to college and found about all the stuff about the slave trade. Because they respect everything on black people as a slave trade. Then they go to these schools and then let these scholars tell them that when your ancestors basically lied to you about saying who you were. That's some BS, man. I'm not doing that. I would never do that. So if you guys like my video, please like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy, AJ the Black World Traveler. I am out.